Welcome to Vigorous Health. I'm Coach Steve. In this video, we're going to discuss how I got my script for hormone replacement, even though at that time I didn't really have low testosterone levels. And I'm going to put this video in the Vigorous Health section instead of Vigorous PEDs, because having a script for hormone replacement is very healthy in regards to your total testosterone levels, obviously, especially when you have chronically low testosterone levels, giving you a legitimate medical reason to get a prescription. But it's also very healthy for your stress levels, because now you have a prescription, making it legal for you to use testosterone. At the time I wanted to get my script for hormone replacement, my testosterone levels were not that low. Actually, on the contrary, they were quite high, because I was using exogenous testosterone as part of a steroid cycle. At that time, I was only using testosterone, so I didn't have to worry about the clearance time of Primo, Nandrolone, Trenbolone. I wasn't using anything else, just a basic testosterone cycle at super physiological dosages. So I discontinued the steroid hormones, let my hormone levels decline. I also stopped the use of aromatase inhibitor, allowing for a little bit more estrogen conversion. As your testosterone levels decline, you get declining aromatase activity, resulting in a lower serum estrogen levels. But by removing the aromatase inhibitor, I got a little bit of estrogen conversion in the beginning, resulting in higher sex hormone binding globulin levels. Because in order to get a script from an endocrinologist, your hormone panel, your blood work, needs to look like you suffer from hypogonadism. So your testosterone needs to be low, sex hormone binding globulin needs to be high, estrogen needs to be, bottom of the range, but luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone both need to be in range, albeit at the bottom of the range, because that indicates a scenario of hypogonadism. And in this case, the hypothalamus-pituitary-testes axis isn't exactly downregulated, because the pituitary is still producing LH and FSH, but the testicles are not responding to it, because you proved that with blood work. Testosterone is low, estrogen is low, SHBG is high, and LH and FSH is somewhere in the middle of the range. So that's a true state of hypogonadism. At the time, I still had to go through the grinder and do all my blood work just to show that I was in a solid state of health before they were willing to write me a prescription. So I had to check my lipid levels, my complete blood count, my liver enzymes, my kidney function, and of course a full checkup of my hormone panel. Luckily for me, my blood work results indicated a good enough state of health for me to get a prescription. I waited about 4 or 5 weeks between my last testosterone injection and actually going to the endocrinologist in an attempt to get a prescription. So there was 4 weeks in between the time of my last injection and doing blood work at the hospital. Considering I was running a very moderate steroid cycle prior to getting a prescription, I was running about 500 milligrams of testosterone with 25 milligrams of aromasin twice per week on injection days, 250 milligrams testosterone at Monday with 25 milligrams of aromasin, and the same on Friday. A pretty moderate cycle, not too much negative effect on your lipid levels. My estrogen was still reasonably elevated, allowing for, normal SHBG levels and high HDL levels. So my blood work was pretty good before I came off hormones in order to get a prescription. It was certainly a little bit better when I was getting a prescription. Based on my blood work results and several visits to the endocrinologist, they saw that I qualified for hormone replacement. I got a prescription for 150 milligrams of testosterone enanthate per week, which certainly is enough to keep your testosterone levels in range. But it might not be enough for bodybuilding aspirations, and that's why I supplement on top of my prescription to get a little bit higher testosterone levels. And of course, you can't get a prescription for Anavar, Primo, Nandrolone, Trenbolone, Masterone, Boldenone, or everything else that we use in bodybuilding. But in sense of my testosterone use, I have a prescription and I'm legally able to use it. So how did I get my prescription? I stopped using testosterone. I stopped using aromatase inhibitor. I let my testosterone levels decline. My estrogen went up a little bit, increasing sex hormone binding globulin levels. Then it declined. After about 4 weeks, I noticed loss of libido, loss of motivation, not wanting to train. At one point, I didn't even want to get out of bed anymore. And that's when I made my doctor's appointment. Now, in this case, my testosterone levels were low, my estrogen was low, but my follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone were also low. And I brought those back up by the use of Clomid. Now, normally, in this sense, when all your hormone levels are very, very low, it's a perfect time to start PCT, right? We use ACG, then Nolvadex, and Clomid to restore HPTA. Personally, I didn't want to restore my HPTA because I wanted to get a prescription, but I did want to increase my luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone levels a little bit, which indicates hypogonadism. So I took 50 milligrams of Clomid for 3 days before the doctor's appointment when I was going to do blood work. So my LH and FSH levels were not completely bottomed out by taking a steroid cycle previously. They were about at the bottom of the reference range, still in range, but at the bottom. And I could definitely notice the estrogen-like effect of the Clomid. Because again, Clomid works by attaching to the estrogen receptors in the brain, blocking the effects of estrogen on the pituitary gland, which increases your LH and FSH levels. And I found that 2 or 3 days is more than enough to increase my LH and FSH levels enough to get a prescription. Now, some of my clients who have recommended this protocol to, trying to get a prescription to go 100% legal with their testosterone use, some of them still get a little bit of resistance from the doctor they're trying to get a script from. And in some cases, they had to play the pity cards, emphasizing the loss of libido, loss of sex drive, loss of motivation, not feeling like a man, marital problems, and whatever else they wanted to bring into the conversation as a little bit more incentive for testosterone prescription. Unfortunately, sometimes it's a requirement because not all endocrinologists are that forthcoming when it comes to understanding how a man feels on low testosterone. Again, some guys, this is going to be a temporary protocol. Other guys have a legitimate medical reason because they have real low testosterone levels. But I've noticed with some guys, even when they have chronically low testosterone levels, they go to a doctor, they're not all willing to write you a prescription. And unfortunately, hormone replacement is still a relatively new medical field, and it means some of the endocrinologists might think steroids are the devil, even though they freely prescribe birth control tablets for women. And for any women, for the 1% of women that are watching this video that have used birth control, the mood changes and the appetite increases from birth control are probably way worse than little side effects from testosterone use, especially when you keep your levels within hormone replacement parameters. Again, it's a medical field. Some things are very progressive and some things are a little bit behind, and you might have to play the pity card to get what you want. Some of my clients had to walk into the office of the endocrinologist basically borderline depressed and discuss all the problems they had while they're suffering from low testosterone levels. And even one of them got prescribed a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor instead of getting a prescription for hormone replacement. So he had to change doctors in order to get what he wanted. So in that sense, you can't play the pity card too hard because the doctor might think you're depressed and write you an antidepressant medication instead of a prescription for hormone replacement. And again, a prescription for hormone replacement is not a one-time visit. It requires several visits, blood work analysis by the endocrinologist before they feel inclined to write you a prescription. And once you have a prescription, now you can use this weekly dose of testosterone, maybe 100 milligrams, maybe 125, 150. Some of the more generous doctors are going to write you a prescription for 350 milligrams of testosterone per week. I have several clients who have a prescription for 350 milligrams of testosterone per week. Those guys are all in the States. In the States, it's a little bit easier to get a generous prescription compared to countries like Canada, Australia, Europe. In Thailand, I didn't get 350 milligrams prescribed. I got 150 milligrams of testosterone enanthate prescribed. That was the maximum, but that was enough for me because I'm supplementing on top, because I prefer my testosterone levels to be a little bit higher than 1,000 nanograms per deciliter. Now, since I take my prescription for hormone replacement into my own hands by supplementing testosterone on top, I'm also supplementing DHEA and pregnenolone. I'm not using any aromatase inhibitor, allowing for a serum estrogen level of 75 picograms per milliliter. And this gives me the best combination of libido, sense of well-being, cognition, and overall feeling of manliness. And now my testosterone levels are elevated out of the reference range, but so is my estrogen, elevated out of the reference range at 75 picograms per milliliter, which doesn't cause me any acne or gynecomastia. I mean, I still have a little bit of acne, but it's probably diet-related, not estrogen-related. My libido is just perfect on this relatively high level of serum estrogen. My DHEA sulfate levels are both at the top of the reference range, and so are my pregnenolone and pregnenolone sulfate levels at the top of the reference range. I know you guys are going to ask in the comment fields, Steve, what are you running right now? 150 milligrams of prescribed testosterone enanthate with 100 milligrams of testosterone enanthate supplemented on top, resulting in 250 milligrams of testosterone enanthate injected 125 milligrams on Monday and 125 milligrams on Friday, twice a week. I don't use any aromatase inhibitor, again, so my estrogen levels is a little bit elevated. 25 milligrams of DHEA per day and 10 milligrams of pregnenolone per day, allowing for a little bit higher serum estrogen levels. But my DHEA, DHEA sulfate, pregnenolone sulfate are all at the top of the reference range. Good libido, good cognition, good sense of well-being. I'm very productive. I prefer this hormone balance and hormone profile over what I was prescribed for at 150 milligrams of testosterone per week. Again, because my DHEA levels and pregnenolone levels decline. I don't get enough estrogen conversion for a super solid libido on 150 milligrams testosterone per week. So I increase it a little bit. And by adding DHEA and pregnenolone, of course, I get a little bit more conversion and higher serum estrogen levels. Not part of my hormone replacement is Primo, 100 milligrams on Monday and 100 milligrams on Friday in the same injection. No, you don't need to use different injections because they're both suspended in castor oil. Rotex Medica testosterone enanthate, Bayer, Primobolan. It's not really part of my hormone replacement, but it's the cycle I'm running on top of my hormone replacement. Yeah? So it's 450 milligrams of androgens per week. Let's call that a cycle. Now, unfortunately, in this moment in time, it's not as straightforward to get a prescription for Anavar, Primobolan, Nandrolone, Halotestin, or Winstrol, because even though these are FDA approved, they're only approved under certain medical conditions, and I don't think it's advisable to acquire certain illness for the sake of getting an Anavar prescription, because Anavar is only prescribed for burn victims or wasting diseases, including HIV, and both are not really suitable methods to get a prescription for Anavar. So for now, those compounds still have to be sourced on the black market, and maybe 10 years, 20 years from now, when the world is a little bit more open and progressive towards the use of hormones, for the purpose of enhancing athletic performance or on top of a hormone replacement protocol. For now, getting a prescription for testosterone is still relatively straightforward, but it might take a couple more years before we're able to get prescriptions for all the other hormones. I'd love to hear from you guys what you had to undergo before you got a prescription for hormone replacement and whether you had to change your blood work to even be a candidate for a prescription for hormone replacement, just like I had to do, because I had to reduce my testosterone and estrogen levels and allow my LH and FSH to get back into range after use of steroids for several years before I was even a candidate for a prescription. And if you currently don't have a prescription for hormone replacement, after watching this video, would you consider getting a prescription in the future? Or do you prefer to stay in the gray area with your hormone use, just like the majority of the enhanced bodybuilders do? Again, let me know what you think in the comment fields. Your comments are always highly appreciated, not only for my enjoyment, but also to fill the YouTube algorithm. Feel free to leave me a like if this video is helpful to you in some way or form. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.